Hello, hello, and welcome to Into the MoTaverse. Today we have Alan Page, a long-time member of the MoTaverse, contributor, person of technology, tester, quality leader. Hello, Alan. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. Like you said, long time, not just a member of the MoTaverse, but a fan of the MoTaverse. I think it is by far the best online community for folks interested in quality and testing. And so I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been keen to catch up with you. I was kind of waiting for the right moment, but there is never a right moment, I don't think. But yeah, I've just been following you more recently, following your blog mostly, your updates about your big, long walk, the things you've kind of been writing about in regards to leadership and systems thinking and quality in general. And yeah, I just thought it'd be nice to catch up to see where your brain is at, what you're thinking about, and how we can think about perhaps moving forward positively, I guess, in the work we're doing. Obviously, that kind of feels hard to say, but I'm trying my best to like stay positive with the world.
I feel like already just to that opening statement, there's like 10 things I want to talk about. And I'm going to dig in on one right away and we can go backward, but and this is going to be a theme I think we're going to come back to. And I love that. And just for listeners, so none of this is rehearsed. This is just things pop in my head and I talk about them. If you listen to the A/B testing podcast, you know that tangents are the regular. But you said something about keep moving forward in this world where things are changing quickly. And that's actually the answer is in the question, I think. When I read a lot of LinkedIn these days because I'm scrolling, looking for companies, for jobs, trying to find what my next role is going to be. And what I see just from the LinkedIn community is a lot of folks who don't want to move forward. The world is moving around them and they say, well, I see that, but I'm really good at what I'm doing now. So I'm going to keep doing that and it'll be fine because this is what we need. And they're not right. The most important thing you can do in testing or software development or any knowledge work is stay curious and always be learning new things. So I've been thinking about that a lot. So that popped up. Like, how do we move forward? Well, we move forward. It's a tautology, but it's true.
So how are you moving forward?
I'm continuing to read a lot. I've been playing a lot with AI on my own, not just Gen AI, but with agents. I'm doing a little work with Smart Bear on their agents. I've been doing a lot of little projects with Claude. Here's what I wrote yesterday with Claude's help in about 5 minutes. What I found is I'm looking for jobs on LinkedIn, and what I'm finding is jobs on LinkedIn have, even at senior levels, a gazillion applicants. So I look at some of the other job sites and it's horrible. And then I get, and someone told me on our podcast 6 months ago, my next job would not come from applying. It would come from my network somewhere. Yeah. And sure enough, I'm getting more referrals from my network. But I thought, why didn't I see this company? This company has all these jobs, and why didn't I see them? And because they don't advertise, because they don't have a big enough recruiting department, I think, probably to deal with 1,000 applicants. So I made a list of about 75 of companies kind of in the size I want to go to in that 1,000, 10,000 range. Then I used Claude to figure out what the career websites for those. And then I use Claude Code to quickly write a scraper that once a day goes to all those sites and scrapes for all the jobs that has any of the keywords I'm looking for from those sites, and then puts them into a little dashboard on my Raspberry Pi server at home. So every morning I get up and I can see all the jobs that could potentially be interesting that will not show up on LinkedIn. So there's my little playing with AI. I just find, just like when I was learning to program, I found little projects, little things I needed to write, or I wanted to write just to teach myself. So with what's interesting now in the world of AI is I have an idea for a thing. I can create that thing so quickly. And this is personal use. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not scaling it anywhere. But when I think of, I spend a lot of my time in testing, writing helper tools, diagnostic tools. Way back a million years ago on Windows 98, I did a lot of the graphical device interface testing. So we wrote tools to help analyze fonts and true type fonts and make sure the gray and the light grays, the things that make them look all pretty, were where they were supposed to be. So those things took a long time to write, and they're powerful. But the fun thing now is, with the help, again, let's talk about moving forward, what testers can use with AI is, I have an idea for something that would help me test better, help me, like, and diagnostic tools are great, debugging tools. They can write those in almost no time. It's just the imagination. Yeah. Anyway, how did we get here? So that's move forward. I'm moving forward. I'm staying up to date on stuff. I keep trying things. I think I'm doing what I said at the beginning. I'm a very curious person. I love to be curious about myself, about the world around me, about software, about why people behave the way they do. And those are the things I think that help me not only in the technical part of my job, but in the leadership part as well. Just what testers can do today, just what I'm doing is be curious.
Yeah. Your comments about the job hunting, that's amazing tips, by the way. Hopefully we can cut that into a little short to spread across the internet. But yeah, I mean, like LinkedIn, like, you know, I've been talking about like inshitification, generally speaking, software in general, but, you know, especially online spaces, online communities. Like, we think we're so reliant on them that we accept them as they are and don't question just the value that they bring in. It's like we show up in these spaces and we get fed the content and we scroll obediently, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But there's another tech space where they're getting into recruiting as well, and they think they're smart by recommending me jobs, and they're like the worst job recommendations ever.
Yes.
It's so bad, and I just can't believe that. It's like, really? Can you not see that this is just not working? What's going on? And we've lost all our sense of creativity, right?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I don't think we have. I mean, I thought it was creative for me to come up with the job scraper app. I think we lose our creativity if we let it, and I think the creativity is what's going to let people be successful using AI to accelerate how they do their work. Because it used to be that that just doing the work, writing the code was the work. Even though it's not the hardest part of software development, it's everything else around it. Used to be that writing the code was the hard part, was the easy part, and coming up with the idea, solving the right customer problem was the hard part. I think AI can help you be creative. It's not creative on its own, but like Gen AI is a great sounding block for, like, I'll run ideas through it. I'll say, given these ideas, like sometimes I'll go, here's a blog post I wrote or a newsletter I wrote. What are some controversial titles I can use or provocative titles? It'll give me, it'll give me 10 and 8 of them suck. One of them is okay. And one of them is like, okay, I can tweak this one. So I'll use it like that. It just helps me brainstorm faster. If we lose all of our creativity, yeah, we're going to get lost. But I think that one place I think we don't realize AI can help us is in that wondering and creative part of whether it's software, writing, or whatever. It can help us if we use it and remember to apply critical thinking, because Gen AI is just a parrot that puts words together in a way that makes sense. It's not actually smart.
Yeah. And where do you see that going? Because you've been playing around a bit with this Smart Bear Q, I think it is.
Yeah, I think, agents kind of had so as you hinted, I'll give you the long story. I left my job at NBC last April, and then I, almost exactly a year ago, on April 20th last year, I started at the Mexican border and I walked along the Pacific Crest Trail to the Canadian border, about just under 3,000 miles. And it took about 4.5 months. It was fun. It was great. My whole life fit into a backpack. It was wonderful. And I got back, and actually, I'm thinking about the trip now. I totally forgot what the question was. Where do I see it going, right?
Yeah.
I thought a lot about, I did a lot of thinking on the trail. And I swear to God, I had a great answer that was going to lead into that. And what was I going to say about it? I don't know. So I'll answer in a different way because I don't remember the original way I was going to ask, because this is what you get when you deal with me. I finished the trail, came home, as I mentioned before, kind of got back into civilization. I totally forgot my answer, and I'm stuck on it. So tell you what, ask that question one more time. I'm gonna let my brain calm a little bit from the hike, and I'm gonna answer it in a way, whether it was original way or not.
Yeah, I don't remember the original question.
Oh,
But
this is what I do to people.
Yeah, something around you've been playing with AI. Where do you see it going?
Oh, where do I see it going? Oh, I remember now. So when I got back,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Thank you. What happened was agentic AI was sort of not really, it was, the roots were there. It wasn't really a big thing when I took off. I got back and agentic AI is everywhere. And so I spent a lot of time catching up. I thought, oh, now we're getting somewhere. Way back when ChatGPT first came out, I thought, oh, this is a really cool toy. It can do some cool things. The real fun's going to happen when people begin to innovate. People begin to innovate on top of this. And that's what we're seeing, I think, with agentic AI. We're seeing actually some ability to solve some real problems. I mentioned Claude Code earlier, testing tools. And again, not for, I don't think, well, I don't want to, I'm a big fan of BearQ. I'm not going to plug it too much here. So I'll talk about agentic testing tools and AI in general. They can do all the functional testing. I think developers should use these tools, just like make sure, here's the functionality of my website, make sure it all works. And they can do some exploratory things. I created a couple in the style of Alan Richardson, but much less complex, a couple different test pages, a couple pages that had a couple of bugs on the web pages. And the instructions on how to find the bugs, or some tips, are on the page. So I gave an agentic AI tool some instructions on where the page was, and it found it didn't find all the bugs. It found some of the bugs. So kind of cool. So I think we're a long way away, or maybe never away, from AI replacing some of the exploratory testing that teams do, testers, developers, etc. But what I'm finding is agentic AI will be able to do enough of the functional testing and some of the exploring, and it will take direction really well. Going back into the creative part, the cool thing with agentic testing tools, as soon as I have an idea for a test, I'll just go tell it, run these tests, and it's done. I don't have to write code for it. It just goes and figures it out while I make coffee. So I think where it's going is more and more agents, and the agents will cover more and more of, and I'm going to call it the tedious work, even though there are a lot of folks out there who really like the tedious work, the people who thrive on doing that tenacious work. But there's going to be less need for that. I think we're going to have to be creative in order to, and use all kinds of that right brain. I just saw a note from Dan Pink on LinkedIn, who wrote a book called, he wrote Dry, which everybody's read, but he wrote a book called A Whole New Mind, came out 29 years ago yesterday. It's all about how right brain workers were going to take over the workforce in the coming decades. And that was happening already with creativity, but with AI taking over a lot of the non-creative work, more and more we need creative people, right brain people in all knowledge work, including tech.
Yeah,
I found my way back to the answer I wanted to give. I'm so happy with myself.
Excellent. And I guess it's interesting, as you were saying, that it's literally because the world is moving so fast, and you went on a walk, and obviously it was a long walk.
I went.
And you came back, and the world's changed.
It was, and I was in slow mode for so long. Maybe that's why it's so hard to come back. I was in slow mode, and the world is moving fast. And a parallel I brought up before is, and you've been in tech for a while, Rosie. But 20 years ago, or Agile was becoming a thing and becoming more of a thing. Like 50 people were testers, especially. I'm going to say freaking out. Maybe it's an overstatement, maybe not, about how fast things were moving. How do we keep up? Oh my God. And now the same thing's happening with AI. Okay, if you weren't keeping up before, now what are you going to do? I think testers have to use these tools to keep up. They have to, and I think more and more testers need to focus on improving and go back to the systems thinking, the systems they work in, which is hard when you're, can be difficult when you're a tester and you see that the way rewards and incentives are working aren't promoting quality, what do you do? But I think we need more folks who can push in that area, which is why I think quality as a whole is, we say that everybody owns quality, but really it's the leadership has to build a culture of quality for it to exist.
Yeah. If you were to, let's say you're looking for your next role, what would you be looking for in the sense of how do you want to lead, and what are your expectations, and what do you think an ideal team might look like?
So where I've really found my niche in the last almost 10 years is in, I spent a lot of time in quality at Microsoft. Most of that writing, a big chunk of that I mentioned writing diagnostic and debugging tools, working on the how to make it easier for everyone to create tests and find bugs. A lot of infrastructure pieces. As infrastructure became a thing in services, I naturally gravitated to platform engineering, CI/CD pipelines, cloud services, all those things. And I found both from that perspective where I could add gates, functional quality gates to the CI/CD system and have a little bit more control via leadership, I had more control over quality. Took on larger and larger teams. And what I found is the more senior of a manager I was, the more I had far more influence over quality than I ever did as a tester, even leading large test teams at Microsoft, because I could create that culture of where quality was important, creating pride and craftsmanship. So from a leadership perspective, from a job perspective, I've worked on customer-facing software before quite a bit. I'm happy to lead those teams. I think my sweet spot, if a company wants to have me come in and crush it, it's going to be taking over all of their platform and infrastructure, because I can make that part hum. One of the mantras I've used for many years is I just make it easy for people to do their best work. So get the systems out of the way, get the manual sign-offs out of there, make sure the systems support them, they don't fight with them. And anyone who's worked in tech listening to this is right now thinking about systems they fought with in order to get their job done. I'll get rid of all those. And then from the leadership perspective, a lot of what I do is based on the work of Dan Pink, of Russ Holloway, and Pat Lencioni. I've kind of merged I read a lot of books on leadership, and I merged those into, my principles in leadership are transparency, accountability, and psychological safety. So I find that people do better when they don't feel like there are secrets. And in a company, 99% of the things that feel secret aren't actually secrets. They just aren't shared because maybe someone at the top didn't think it would be interesting. But as I'm going to keep dropping names here, but in the absence of information, people will assume the worst possible version of the truth, which is a quote from, who is that from? Rand's, Michael Lopp. Yeah. So transparency, I let people know what's going on, and I encourage that. There's no information hoarding. You know how that can work. These are all things you see before. I make sure those don't happen. Accountability, especially in the world of remote work and globally distributed teams, basically function the same way. You need to give people autonomy to do what they need to do, along with the support. Dan Pink talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. You have to give them autonomy, but also the skills they need. To me, autonomy and accountability are two sides of a seesaw or a balance. You can't just give someone autonomy and not hold them accountable, and you can't micromanage them and not give them any accountability. You have to give them room to do their work, but make sure they know that accountability is important. If they say, and it's okay if Rosie, you tell me, hey, I'm doing this thing, it'll be done by Friday. Say, great, cool. And Friday, instead of ignoring me when it's not done, you should be say, hey, I was going to finish this on Friday. It'll be done Tuesday instead. And I'll say, and rather than it goes into psychological safety, you're comfortable telling me that because I'm not going to tell you you're horrible. You promised this. Oh my God, this is awful. All I'm going to do is ask you, well, thanks for bringing that up. What did you learn? And, well, 2 of my team members were on vacation this week and I forgot, or we were waiting on, not to blame, but we were waiting on a dependency from this team and it came in a day late. We need to integrate it, make sure we get the testing done. It's great. We learn stuff. We can plan for those things. I say, well, what would you do differently next time? And you can say, well, I'll look at my team schedule, or I will talk to the other team, make sure get a confidence level from them on when their thing will be ready or whatever. There's things you can learn, and over time you will get better at getting things done when you want them to get done, or you plan to get them done. And you can't get any better if you don't make mistakes. So if you're afraid to make mistakes, nobody's ever going to get any better. That's not a very fun org to be in. So I balance autonomy, transparency, and psychological safety and that's sort of the way I lead. And it's worked pretty well. I can even do that at NBC, for example. I was even able to do that in my org within a company that didn't value any of those things. So it does work. It does. One of the best comments I got from my employees when I left there was, "Thank you for trying to bring a breath of fresh air to our company." And so that's the best I could do. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm going to find it. I'm being selective. Like I said, I want companies that care about making good software and companies that care about people, because I'm pretty good at both.
Yeah. What do you think about the ideas around like everything feels to be merging together? So like context engineering, like you don't need to know the code as much, so more team members can contribute. And how do you kind of hire for that, or hire for, as you say, maybe it's the creativity side or the skill side, but it's like we're so attached to skills in our CVs, for example.
We are. And I think that's changing. I don't think, these lead code interviews, asking people bits of trivia around, testing jobs around, some Selenium selector oddity is not a good way to interview someone, because AI is going to do that work for them. I think we really do need to interview for creativity and problem solving and judgment. But to finish that thought and go back to a story from Microsoft a long time ago, we like the ability, like code's never been the hard part. And even when ChatGPT first came out, and it was okay at code, I had it write some code for me. It couldn't do some things. Claude and everything is so much better now. But early on a podcast with Brand a couple of years ago, I said that in the future, the ability to read code and understand it is going to be more important than the ability to write code. And we got there very quickly. I think if I were interviewing in a tech role, I wouldn't ask someone to write code. Here's an interesting thing. I would give them, this would be a fun interview. I haven't thought about this. This is on the spot. What if I give them a problem and I want to see how well they can prompt AI to give a solution for that problem? Then I would ask them to evaluate the solution from AI. Tell me what it's doing. What shortcomings do you see? What's the next prompt you would give to try and fix that, or what would you try and fix yourself? Because that's the way programming is going to be working for the foreseeable future. So why would I have you go reverse a linked list or find out all the possible chess moves when you'll never need to do that for a job in the first place? And all this reminds me that at Microsoft, I left Microsoft in 2017. So it's been a while. But I spent about 15 years of my career there doing what's called an as-appropriate interview, which is the interview at the end of the loop. And Microsoft did a lot of hiring out of college, universities. And these kids would come to me, and they're so smart. I have a music degree. I didn't study algorithms at MIT like they did, or whatever schools they were from. And they, crushed their interviews of their elitish code interviews. And they'd come to me, and I was supposed to try and sell them on the company, but I always give them a little bit of something to think about. And I'd ask them, I don't even remember what the questions were. They weren't like the dumb, like how would you find a book in a library? But just ask them a question around, how do you learn? Or what's the last thing you've learned? I'm trying to get an idea of in that case, like how well do you learn something? Or I might ask a simple problem of, again, none of the trivia stuff out of How Do You Move Mount Fuji, the book full of interview questions. Just something. I want to get a little idea of how they think. Very easy. This is a selling interview. And they were just stuck because they knew algorithms and coding and the science behind it. They were true computer scientists. They knew all that so well. But they didn't actually know how to write software to solve a problem. They could create an algorithm for a homework assignment really well and really fast, but they couldn't actually think about how to solve a problem. And it's not like I rejected them all right away, but it was alarming for me how many folks, and those folks are really screwed today, right? You can't it doesn't matter how good you are at algorithms, and the AI is going to be better for you. So I think now even more than ever in tech and all knowledge work, and I don't know if you saw the article out of Anthropic about 2 or 3 weeks ago talking about all the different, they did a radar chart of like 12 or 15 different areas of knowledge work and how much AI is used there now and how much they expect it to be used. And the growth there is huge everywhere. So I think we need to change the way we interview and the way we coach, the way we train, the way we treat employees, to not ignore AI, but to embrace it in a way that lets people use it responsibly and a way that helps them move quicker, but also move quicker in a sustainable way. Like, just because I can use AI to automatically redo my website 75 times a day doesn't mean that's the right thing I need to do. Delivering software and solving customers' problems are two related but different things.
Yeah, I mean, like in the MoTaverse, for example, like we've been trying to think about like what is it that we want to be, especially over the past couple of years. It's just like I came back and like one of the rules, I think, as you get older, perhaps you get a bit maybe pickier about how you want to deal with things. And like when I came back, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to do it and go for it and take on things that I would have been perhaps a bit more scared to do in my previous years. And as part of that, it's just like the whole web internet is like everything's like becoming more fragmented. Mm-hmm. So as part of that, we've been kind of committed to the idea of we're just going to build our own platform. We're not just a forum, we're not just a conference, we're building out a platform. And I didn't know what it would look like. I still don't fully know. We're just like building on it day by day, quite literally. But a big part of that is like social learning and this idea of showing up together, doing things together, mm-hmm. Having a bit of gamification to show that you're showing up, but also having like all these different types of contributions that people can make. So you can add a link and you earn a star for adding a link, or when people visit the link you share, then you earn the stars as well. So it's like you're not just earning when you post something, you're earning when people value it as well. So a link is a contribution, or we have moments, which is like mostly text-based content that you can post. But really it's just like, all of that combined with, you can run a meetup, or you can do a talk, and all of that is combined into social learning, or you can watch a talk and then make notes on it and then publish it, and then that's all like becomes a demonstration of your career, so to speak. And we started that journey like a couple of years ago, and we were like focused on testing, but then I was like, I can't just focus on testing, and everything's shifting to quality. And I was like, I can't just talk about testing because I really want to talk about quality. So we made the shift towards calling ourselves like a quality community, not just testing. And then the more we did that, I was like, I can't just talk about quality. I have to talk about the whole system, the products.
Yes, it's a system.
It's a system. I was like, it feels it's restricting my, like creativity, like as you say. It's like I want to have conversations with lots of people, but if we're called Ministry of Testing, then all these other people won't necessarily want to speak to us because we're all about testing, and they won't understand that. Well, why do you want to talk to me if you're a testing community? So it's kind of tapping into like all the things that you're saying. Is like I've got this creativity that I feel obligated now because I've made that promise to myself. I was like, we're going to build something and do our best to make it work. And if it doesn't work, I'm at the stage of life where I don't really care if it doesn't work.
That's the right way to do it. Yeah,
I've given it my best shot, right? But I can no way look back at how things were And it's not because we did things wrong or we did things bad, but it's more that that's in the past and the world is changing. And I don't like how some things are in the world. And if I've got my one life to live, I've lived long enough to just say like, God damn it, I'm just going for it, right? But a lot of it is the creativity aspect. It's like, and not needing to seek that permission. So it's like now we're shifting towards a tech community, and part of me feels like this is really crazy. Can we do it? And that's why we call ourselves the MoTaverse at the moment, and there's still like some changes that we need to make over the next few months, but we are shifting there because I don't feel like we can talk about quality without inviting product people in, without inviting developers in. I can't do it. So it's just like, it feels so right to us at the moment to be going in that direction, on top of looking at all the other kind of tech communities out there and just seeing so much enshittification and thinking about, well, the world's changed, and like Dig, for example, tried to come back and then they had to close it down 2 months later because of AI bots just like overtaken the platform that they had built. And that's that's the reality we live in now, right? It's like we have to build differently. We have to protect ourselves from the bots. We have to rethink how we gather. Conferences are great, but we need more than conferences. But for me, it's like perhaps a bit like you, I have this need to work, or I have this need to feel creative, and I'll probably always want to be doing something because it keeps me alive. But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that or what was the last thing you said.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I'll build on that a little bit. Of course, I came back from this hike in, probably the best physical and mental shape I had been in, because there's so much self-therapy I did on the trail, just like working through stuff in my head. I came back in really good shape, and I realized that I wanted to stay in that good a shape. So I read this book by Peter Attia called Outlive, and it talks about the need for mental health and physical health and diet. So I ate like crap when I was hiking, but I've been eating really well. Mental health is like, it's not just the, taking care of stress and anxiety, but also just kind of keeping myself, especially out of work, being active. I've been learning Russian, just a little Russian every day, just to exercise my brain, or doing these little creative exercises. I cannot not exercise my brain. And it was good to read this book and say, oh, this is going to help me live longer. He talked about health span. Like my dad had a very long downturn at the end of his life. I would like to be going 100 miles an hour until I'm not moving at all. There's a difference between health span and lifespan. So I've been thinking about that a lot. And part of that, just keeping my brain active, and things you're talking about. I like to try new things. I'm not working, but I am. Of course, I do play pickleball with some people, some retirees down the road here almost every day. But I keep myself active. Like I mentioned, I did Russian. I'm applying for jobs. I'm also doing a lot of reading, a lot of trying things out. And I was just on Elizabeth Hendrickson's podcast. It hasn't been posted yet, but one of the things we talked about there that I'll announce here as well is when I was hiking in my head, talking about systems, I wrote a book in my head on the system of software delivery, and really it was to kind of bring in some of the modern testing principles, but not in a heavy way, and just tell a story about a company that had a hard time shipping software, and where blame sometimes came to the test team. I'm sure your listeners have all heard that, and how they grew out of that by improving the system, and it went really well. And then so I got back and I wrote it, and I'm currently looking for a publisher, and I might do some excerpts on my newsletter at some point. But it's funny that I also got a chance to pre-read Elizabeth's book, and independently, I haven't seen Elizabeth in like a couple of years. My book was originally called Signals. It was some subtitle I can't remember, but her book, as she wrote at the same time, is called Signals and Levers. It's a different take on kind of the same thing. It's just super interesting. Hers is, it's really good. It's a combination of a story and some good lessons in math. It kind of goes back and forth between fiction and nonfiction. And mine is just a narrative fiction all the way through. And they're complementary. I don't think one takes away from the other, but it's just interesting that you're talking about systems and quality is a system. And at the same time, Elizabeth and I independently talking about quality as a system. And when I post this stuff on LinkedIn or on Substack, I'm finding more and more people are thinking about this quality as a system, which isn't new by any means, but I feel like maybe it's gaining momentum.
Yeah, definitely. Patrick Prill, I don't know if you follow him. He's another one.
I know Patrick.
He's been writing a lot on that. And in line with all of that, I write separately about community building.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, like, I define community as a system now. It's the same as that you can't have quality. Quality has to come from the heart or leadership, right? And it's the same with community.
Yeah.
And all these community people are trying to figure out how to do community, and most of the time it never works because it's done in a silo. It's there in the corner, or people aren't properly talking to each other, or community efforts get canned too quickly because it's not supported by leadership. But it's the same. It's the same challenges. It's like you can't build community if it's not supported by leadership, and all the conversations everywhere in a company, all the people, they're all community. So if you're not considering the whole system,
it is, and it reminds me of two things. Peter Singer's book, Fifth Discipline, talks about the need for a learning organization. An organization needs to focus on learning and growing. And it reminds me of I wrote an article for Better Software a million years ago on this, on Philip Armour's the 5 Orders of Ignorance. And you don't know something. Like 6 months ago, I didn't know any Russian, but I knew I didn't know it. And then there are things you don't know what you don't know. And I can't give you an example; it's impossible. But the fifth one is you know how the things work. It's kind of tautologic. But the one that's important, where community steps in, is you don't have a suitable means to discover what you don't know, and that's where that's what community does. You get people together, and you can discover, oh, I didn't know that. Now I can choose that thing I didn't know to be something I want to know, and then know it. And that's how knowledge acquisition works. And you need, it's possible to do in isolation. You just read a bunch of books. That's one way to discover what you don't know. But community accelerates that. It's so important. Even if you're in the Wikipedia cred, I'm sure the numbers are the same for MoTaverse. There's a small number of people, maybe less than 10% for sure, are contributors, but there's 90% who just consume. And even those people are getting value because they're discovering things they didn't know, and they're able to acquire knowledge. So community is, I ran communities at Microsoft for a long time, have a little bit of a community around our podcast, but it's so important for growth and learning. And going back to one of the original questions, if you are not interested in learning, if learning doesn't excite you, it's not just testing. I think in the age of AI, your career in all knowledge work, your career options are limited if you don't love learning.
Yeah. And how do you see that people are learning? Or how do you see that they're not learning?
There are, with every advancement, I mean, again, we pop in and out of our different echo chambers. I see people learning by embracing and trying new things and not being afraid to make mistakes. With every change, and I won't even speak about testing, I'll speak in general about all knowledge work, is when there's change, sometimes people will bury their head in the sand, figuratively or metaphorically, and try and pretend the change isn't happening. Like even today, I could go to LinkedIn right now, and without too much scrolling, I could find someone saying that AI is basically saying AI is a fad, it's going to go away. I'm going to keep on doing things the way I'm doing them because that's the only way that works. I know that post is out there, probably in the first couple pages of scrolling. And I usually hit the little X to further refine my echo chamber because I don't want to see that stuff anymore. But that's how I see people not learning. If there is change happening around you and you choose to ignore it rather than try and ride the wave. And we saw the same thing with Agile 15, 20 years ago. Like, I'm going to keep doing stuff the same way. I don't need to change. And if there is significant change happening, being able to recognize that and jump on that wave, for the surfing metaphor, and ride it is so important for learning. But if you're going to choose to ignore it, even if you get on that wave later, you're behind. Like, I just think that any knowledge work, whether you're a journalist, a writer, a lawyer, a developer, or a tester, you have to love learning more than ever these days in order to have continued success and continued joy.
Where do you think testers or quality people should focus their learning on? Obviously, the obvious answer is like AI, but is there anything else like you would like respect if you saw someone like tackling something?
So there's a lot of, and this is off the cuff here. One is just, I'll just actually answer this two ways. One is just curiosity around, is there another way to, how can I speed up my testing is one thing. And this is where I've always been a fan of diagnostic tools and helper tools. 25 years ago, I think I wrote God, I've been doing this a long time. Maybe 20 years ago, I wrote a tool to make it easier for our developers to write unit tests. Like here's it. They'll write it in our test framework. Fill out this little form, and bam, it's all there. Just write your tests. And this is that now. There's 10,000 tools to do this, but really that comes down to, and if you know me, I have to talk through things before I find the answer. Is second principle of modern testing: find the bottlenecks, find the things that are slowing the team down, find whether it's handoffs, whether it's bad tooling. See if you can find ways to optimize those. This might scare some testers because things are already moving too fast. But if the bottleneck may be rework, maybe it's something's done and it's buggy and there's back and forth and back and forth. The thing the tester could go get curious about is, how can we make sure we get this right more often the first time? It's not going to be perfect all the time. What kinds of errors are happening? Are these functional things? Let's apply AI to go find it. Was functional static analysis, etc. We can use AI to find those things. If it's, I'll pick on accessibility. If it's an accessibility thing, maybe we could trade. Probably that's an agent could do that. There are other static analysis tools for that. You could find some tab order things like that. But look at the kinds of bugs that are slowing the team down, the things that are getting past because things are moving so fast. Look for patterns, and rather than I think most testers are beyond the days of reveling in, oh, look, I found 10 bugs. This is great. My job is valid. Look at all the bugs I'm finding. I think if you're there, please move on. Because what I really want to do, if I found 10 bugs, if I was working for a company, I found 10 bugs in a day, I wouldn't, I'd be, I'm glad I found these. But I think the main thing is what can I do to make sure that we never get clusters of bugs like this again? Bugs should be rare, especially with AI tools. How do when we find patterns, what can we do to make sure that we do things that will make sure these patterns of bugs never happen again? And it used to be, well, we can't. We'll just have to find these in production. Maybe it's some obscure edge case. We're getting better and better at finding those things before production, and hopefully we can find them. Hopefully we can find them faster. But I think the short answer is, be curious about what's happening in your system. Try and find ways to optimize flow.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I was thinking about creating flow, lack of friction, ensuring the systems work better. But then also, I guess, what's perhaps going to happen more is looking at work to remove, like old work that no longer makes sense, and replacing that with agentic AI type.
Yeah, and that's fixing the system. How can constantly looking for improvement.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Scary, but fun.
And then also, just to add one more thing, another thing I'm harping on for years is, if developers are creating code super fast and you're worried about, oh my God, how do we test this? Just like we did 20 years ago with Agile, pair with the developers. This is really cool. Teach them how to use agentic AI to test their software too.
Yeah.
99% plus of the developers I've worked with are excited to do that. They just sometimes don't feel like, well, I have this testing expert over here, I better give all that to them. It's shared knowledge. We help them get better at it. You can do, as a tester, if you help them figure out how to test the crap out of their stuff. One, you're kind of, again, the way theory of constraints works, maybe if we slow down this part, the rest will speed up. Because the bottleneck is downstream, and the way to, if you go back to Goldthwai's goal, like if you slow down one part of the system, it actually may speed up the system overall. So maybe let the developer, one way to get to cut down their flow of how quickly they're generating code is give them advice and coaching and sit with them and pair with them so they learn how to test that very well. So that by the time it gets to the tester, the bugs and the things we're finding are minor or edge cases or things that we just didn't know how to find at that earlier stage. And that's where we should be now. If you're, as I think out loud here, if you're a tester on a test team today and people are producing code really fast and all you're getting are a bunch of bugs, one, it can be overwhelming and go, oh my God, AI, you could say AI is awful because it's doing this to me. But the thing I would do then is go upstream and say, how can we make sure that what comes to us is better? So anyway, expansion on the same idea.
Yeah, because to add to that, one of the conversations that has come up a few times recently is code or dev is almost working too fast, and other people in the teams can't quite keep up. So there's like a mismatch of speed or expectations, and that seems to be a bit of a struggle for some people at the moment, where things just kind of they're just not going at the right cadence for the whole team. So it's almost like all the investment is in speeding up code, but then other team members haven't had a chance to refigure out what they're meant to do to stay in line with how fast things are shipping. But as you say, like pairing with developers could start to help fix that, or even just awareness from the whole team of there's a problem here. Is like slow down.
I would do this if you're in something like Kanban. A lot of times people use like 1 million columns in Kanban. Just have in progress and deployed, and and then if you limit work in progress, you have to get all the work done before stuff can move forward. Because if you again looking at the system, speeding up one part when you're not doing anything to speed up the other parts doesn't help. So
absolutely,
what can we do to get stuff moved from, in progress to deployed? And that's where maybe a better way to look at quality is everyone's responsibility. What's the right way to split up the work and the way to share the work, and the way to collaborate so we get from in progress to deployed at I'm not even gonna say as fast as possible at the quickest rate we can sustain.
Yeah, that's maybe a good place to stop. Do you have any final words? Anything you want to mention before?
I don't know. Did I talk about AI at all? I can't remember. I'm kidding.
My brain's too old to remember.
You can. it's in there a lot. You can read my newsletters at angryweasel.substack.com. And again, MoTaverse is awesome, and I love what you're doing, Rosie, and I'm happy to be here. Happy to have been here.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the MoTaverse.
All right. Thank you.